I'm Idiotech, and today I want to talk to you about early access games. Now, the reason I want to talk to you about this is because I keep getting comments on several videos that I've made telling me I'm not allowed to review early access games because it's unfair, etc, etc. And honestly, I'm tired of hearing it, so I'm going to make a video about it. I was going to make a video about Nvidia and ATI, but I decided this was more interesting today, so that's what I wanted to talk about, so that's why I'm making a video about it. So, essentially, I'm going to cover why I review early access games, what the problems with reviewing early access games might be, and why people seem to get so upset about it when I do review early access games, okay? So, now the reason I review them is pretty simple, because I feel consumers have a right to know what they're spending money on. And it's pretty simple, honestly. I can't see why anyone would disagree with me on this point, but some people do. As a consumer, and I assume most of you are consumers, I think you would like to know what you're going to buy, right? Whether or not the thing you're going to spend your money on, and in some cases quite a lot of money on, is worth your time and effort, and your money, and your hard-earned cash, you know? We work jobs, people have to earn that money, and we want to know if it's worth spending it, right? Apparently some people don't. Apparently some people think that that's wrong to do. I'm not really sure why. I mean, people raise some concerns, I guess, that are valid, but I can counter them pretty easily. Anyway, that's the first reason, because I believe consumers have a right to know what they're spending money on. And because these games charge money, I'm going to tell you. Now, a second reason is because early access games come with a significant amount of risk to the customer. A lot of these games don't get finished, or they end up in development hell for several years, right? At which point they're no longer relevant and people have lost interest in them. Like, you need to know that when going into a product. Is this developer worth their salt? Do they know what they're doing? You know, based on what they've created so far, do we have faith in their ability to finish the project? Because a lot of games don't get finished. Towns didn't get finished. There was a game, space station building game by Double Fine that didn't get finished. There was a dinosaur game that got completely ditched and they moved to a new engine. Rust switched to a new engine halfway through the development of the game, ended up in development hell. DayZ still hasn't released. It's one of the games that's been in early access the longest, you know? The developer on that, the key developer Dean Hall, just walked away from the project. People have a right to know that, and there's a lot of risk involved. Another area is that, you know, people don't seem to remember that these games are going to be horribly broken, and, you know, someone needs to remind them, you know, because it's getting so frequent now, early access games, like even big publishers are doing it. Like Codemasters released Dirt Rally in early access. Now, it's a good game, but still, you know, when big publishers are doing that, the next step is companies like EA, right? So it's something to consider. It's something that people need to be aware of. It's not a particularly consumer-friendly environment, in my opinion, and there are a lot of games coming out in early access now. Most of the interesting titles that release these days are coming out in early access, okay? And so, if I was to not review them, there would be nothing to review, literally. Most games come out in that form now. So, again, if we're going to review video games, which I think we need to for various reasons, we're going to have to review early access games. And finally, because the idea that a game can release to the public, make millions in sales, and be immune from critique is simply stupid and dangerous and potentially damaging to the industry, right? Just because something's early access doesn't make it immune from criticism, especially when it can sell 10 million copies and make millions and millions of dollars, right? It's officially released, the developer has come out and said, this is released, you can buy this with your money, but no one can critique it. No one can say anything bad about our game because it's not finished. That's a dangerous place to be in, honestly, and I think a lot of companies are going to exploit that. And we see that every day on Steam. There are tons of games coming out in early access that are clones of other games. The rate at which survival games are being pumped out now that have very little difference from one another, you know, they use store-bought assets, they're rushed together as quickly as possible to make a quick buck. It's just a fact, okay? It's a fact. Some developers take it seriously, some developers release good games on early access, but the majority don't. The majority of games that come out on that platform are awful, don't run well, poorly optimized, they don't have good gameplay mechanics, they're clearly just clones of other games in the genre, you know? Good games, examples of them, Prison Architect, good game, Assetto Corsa, good game, etc. There are some good games, but a lot of the games coming out now aren't good. And it's a dangerous market. It's just like Kickstarter, crowdfunding, you know? These types of things are risky. That's why investment people, like, you know, investors used to invest in these kinds of things because they understood there was risk involved, but there was also reward in the fact that they could make significant amounts of money back. But you're being asked to take a risk without any return on the investment, just you might get a game one day. To me, that just seems ridiculous. And the idea that a game could be immune from criticism for 3 years, I mean, DayZ has been in early access now for several years, right? And still not get criticized, because it's not fair to do so. It's ridiculous to me. It's a dangerous concept, and I think it's harmful to consumers and to the industry as a whole. So those are the reasons why I review early access games. You can disagree with me. Please let me know why you disagree with me in the comments so I can get a better understanding of this issue, but you know, those are my thoughts. Now, what are some of the potential pitfalls of reviewing an early access game? Well, one criticism I hear a lot, and I think it's valid, is that the review will only remain relevant for a limited amount of time. And that's true, you know, in some cases more than others. But for example, let's take my video on Dirt Rally. So I reviewed that game, it had some problems, I pointed them out. It also lacked a little bit of content. They've now added tons more content to the game. So my review isn't irrelevant. I mean, the things I said about gameplay mechanics and the driving physics and the look and the sound design, that's all still very relevant, but there's more content now. Also, they fixed some of the issues with force feedback, which I actually failed to critique in the review, and I should have. But, you know, so there are things that need to be added. Now, in some cases, we could counter this by just adding some annotations to the video, and that would solve the problem. And in other cases, it might require an additional video to reevaluate the product in its current state. So you can either do that on release, or you can do that 6 months into development, a year into development, etc., etc. It's a pretty easy thing to solve, though. It just means making another video. Another point that people make is that it's unfair to judge something that isn't finished. Now, for example, and I'll give you an example here, it's if I go into a room and there's an artist painting a painting and the painting isn't finished and I say, oh, that doesn't look very good, right? That's unfair criticism, okay? That's unfair. He hasn't finished it. He didn't bring it to me. He didn't present it to me and say, hey, what do you think of my picture? I just walked in and was a dickhead and just said, you know, oh, that looks a bit shit, right? But that's not what I'm doing. What I'm doing is I'm taking a painting that someone has brought to me, is asking me to pay them money for, right? And then judging it, which is a completely different scenario. And I think people are massively misrepresenting the situation here. The developers are actively coming out in a lot of cases and asking for feedback. Well, guess what a review is? It's feedback. So it's a silly point. I think people are just using it to justify the reason they're upset, which I'll get onto next. So why are people so upset when you review games, or when you say anything negative about a game in general, but specifically early access games, right? Now, an interesting thing I've noticed in my limited time here on YouTube is that people don't raise these concerns specifically when I praise a game. So if I say a game in early access is good, or I'm not particularly harsh on the game, for example, Lego Worlds, I thought it had the potential to be a good game. I didn't feel it had much to offer currently, and I thought people maybe should wait on their purchase, but I thought it was okay, right? I didn't get anywhere near as much hate on that video as I did on, say, Ark Survival Evolved. Now, granted, on Ark Survival Evolved, I was ranting, it wasn't a proper review, and the Lego Worlds video was. But still, the degree of hatred I experienced on the Ark Survival Evolved video, somewhat justified. I mean, I was pretty ranty, but I don't see it when I say good things about a game, okay? When I say good things about a game, the majority of the comments are, yeah, it is a good game, I agree with you. But when I say bad things about a game and people like that game, then I get a lot of hatred. So what that sort of says to me is that people don't actually care about the ethical issues surrounding reviewing early access games. What they care about is games getting negative press that they enjoy, right? And that's a clear distinction for me. And it's important, right? And it leads me to just draw the conclusion that people feel the need to defend things that they like. If they buy Ark Survival Evolved and they're playing it and they're really enjoying it, and they go on the internet and some guys made a video telling them that it's a bad game and that it doesn't run well and that people shouldn't buy it, then I guess they could feel that that was an attack on them personally. Now, that's not what it is. I'm just trying to help people make educated purchasing decisions, but people will feel attacked. And depending on the delivery of the video, in the case of the Ark video, I was a lot more ranty, I was very angry, whereas in the Lego Worlds video I wasn't, so some of that's on me, and I agree. However, it sort of brings up a point, and you see this a lot, and it was something I was going to cover in my AMD and NVIDIA video today that I decided not to do, and it's something you see a lot in gaming in general, and that's people fanboying and just defending things in a fanatical way. You know, PS4 versus Xbox One, AMD versus NVIDIA. These types of things, these people are very fanatical, and it's strange to me. I find it strange, but I think I understand it. I could be wrong, of course, but I think I do. Now, essentially what happens is I'll make a video, for example, the Batman Arkham Knight video, and I just made that video with the intention of informing people who have subscribed to me, and there's not that many of them. I've only got 2,000 subscribers, and I just wanted to let those people know, hey, this game's broken, don't buy it, right? That was simply all I was trying to do. And that video blew up. And the reason it blew up is not because it was a good video. The content of the video is just obvious, you know? The game doesn't work, here's an example, don't buy the game. The reason the video blew up is because people were angry about that game being broken on release, and they wanted to be vindicated. They wanted confirmation that they were right in their anger, that they were justified in being angry, and my video gave them that, right? It gave them the confirmation that they were right to be pissed off. And that's something that's very important here, because I don't think it's about issues of ethics. I don't think it's about how it's unfair to review products that aren't finished, how it might hurt developers. I don't think people genuinely give a shit about that at all. What I think people care about is defending things they love and getting confirmation and validation that they're right in their views on certain things. So I say Batman's broken and you shouldn't buy it, people are angry, they vote me up. I say Ark Survival is broken on release, people love it though, and they vote me down. Right? And that's what I'm seeing time and time again here. I don't think it's an issue of ethics. I think it's an issue of people defending the things they love. But the question is, why do people do that, and why do they do it so strongly? And that's, I don't know. I mean, honestly, I don't know. I think it's a human issue, to be honest. I think it comes down to tribalism, things like AMD versus NVIDIA. You know, why would you vehemently support a graphics card manufacturer? Do you know anyone that works at NVIDIA? Do NVIDIA pay your rent? Are NVIDIA, like, you know, were they good to your family last year? It doesn't make sense to me why you would be so invested and so loyal to a company, a developer, a publisher, a game, anything like. It doesn't make sense to me. These are products. Companies make them to sell to you to generate profits. You exist solely to generate profits for them. That is all you are. You are just money. Okay? Like, they don't see you as people, they don't care about you. NVIDIA doesn't care about whether or not you have a good gaming experience, right? Only so, well, they do, only so far as to that you'll buy more of their graphics cards and they'll get more of your money, right? The companies don't give a shit about you. That's not how the relationship works, but people behave as if they do. People think Sony care about gamers. They don't. They just did the right thing that year. They were like, oh, gamers are important. They read the cultural pulse and they were like, okay, people are pissed off about the fact that we're moving towards entertainment stuff and being a more mainstream device, so we'll be more focused on gamers at E3, and then they, you know, won E3 essentially. Microsoft stumbled and fell. But that doesn't mean PlayStation care about you. They just care about your money, and they'll do what they have to do to get your money. And if that's being good to gamers, they'll be good to gamers. You know, it's the issue with Steam right now. Steam's pretty much an effective monopoly in the industry, and they don't do stuff that people want because they don't have to, because there's no competition. Until there is, they'll just get by with the minimal required, you know? And it's amazing we got refunds, but there was some legal pressure behind that decision. It wasn't to be nice to consumers, right? They didn't pull mods, like paid mods from Steam, because they care about you. They pulled them because there was a consumer backlash. So that's how the relationship actually works, and I think people forget this. People seem to think that because they had a great experience with something that they need to be loyal to that experience, that they need to be loyal to the people who made it, to the company that developed it, and that they can do no wrong. And all I ever hear these days on my YouTube channel is, it's early access. Every email, every day I get up to the email, it's early access. Fair points, but it's early access, which excuses anything it might do. It could release broken. It could release where it doesn't work. It could literally set fire to people's graphics cards, and they would say, oh, it's early access. What do you expect? Don't buy into it if you don't know what you're going to expect. Well, I'm sorry, but most games these days are coming out in early access. So if you want to play games that release, that are interesting, that have interesting ideas behind them, and cool mechanics, you're buying early access games, which means I'm reviewing early access games. So essentially, look, I think consumers have a right to know what they're spending money on. I think there's significant risk there to customers. I think that most games these days are coming out in early access, and so more people are going to be interested in hearing what people have to say about their experiences initially with those games. I think the idea that you can censor critique on something simply because it isn't finished, even though you're presenting it to the public and asking for money, right, is ridiculous and harmful to the industry. I don't think the concern that the review will only remain relevant for a period of time is particularly justified, because I can just make another video. I don't think it's unfair to judge something that isn't finished, because in this case, they're presenting it to me to be judged and asking me to pay them money, and in some cases asking for direct feedback, okay? And when people raise concerns about ethics on this topic, I don't think they're being honest. Honestly, I don't think they're being honest and true in that assessment. I think what they're actually interested in is defending things they like when other people tell them that they're not good. Okay, so when it comes down to it, I'll continue to review early access games going forward for the reasons I've just stated, and I'm sorry in advance if I disagree with you on the quality of a game that you love. It's my right to do that. I'm trying to help people out who might not be you, who might not like the same things that you do, and you know, it's equally your right not to watch my videos. You know, if you find my opinions to not be in agreement with yours and that's what you're looking for that validation and that confirmation, then don't watch my videos, go watch someone else's videos who agrees with you. I'm going to continue to critique games. I'm going to continue to be harsh to games that don't deserve your money, because frankly, otherwise what's the point of my channel? If I just say every game that comes out's great to please people, then I'm not going to get anything out of this. I'm doing this because I think that it's an important thing to do. I think reviewing video games and critiquing the industry and keeping the industry honest and publishers and developers honest is important. That's what I think is important. That's why I make these videos. That's why I do what I do. I'm going to continue to do that, and I'm sorry if I upset you. Anyway, if you found this interesting, let me know in the comments. Let me know what you think about reviewing early access games. I'm sure a lot of you have strong opinions on this. Otherwise, like, favorite, share, and subscribe, and I will see you guys next time.